I'm Leo Warder for Kit Guru. This case is the Fractal Design Meshify C, which is a tempered glass model. It's brand new, so the tempered glass isn't really a suffix because the only Meshify C has tempered glass. But the thing is, there's a bit of a kind of Fractal Design DNA sort of thing going on. You may recall that recently my colleague Dominic reviewed the Fractal Design Define tempered glass, and he in turn referred in that review back to my review of the Define C, which was an acrylic windowed thing. So there's the Define C, then they've taken the acrylic window off and put tempered glass on to make the Define tempered glass, and now we have the Meshify, which is the same case except they've changed the front panel, and there are a couple of really minor other changes to it, but basically that is what it boils down to. It's a very blacked out kind of design, so it's dark glass on this particular model. So I'm going to take the panel off just so you can actually see what's going on inside. So if for the moment we ignore the front panel, you'll see that inside it's all that Fractal Design goodness that we're used to. So you've got a fixed power supply cover, a main compartment that's fairly open, and it's all good stuff. The top of the case is also different in that you have a magnetic dust filter, but you do not have the option of closing the top off with the Fractal Design Moduvent panels that sort of close it all up and give it that sleek look that we're used to with, well, actually the Define R5 as well as the Define C, basically the Define models in general. And along those same lines, you don't have the noise deadening material inside this case that you get with the Define. But once again, it's that front panel, it's this angular front. I like the look of the front, no two ways about it, but it's about airflow. So instead of having little slits at the side and sort of little vents and a bit of air gets in, it just flows through. Removing the front panel to see what's going on inside ought to be straightforward, but it is actually slightly more tricky than you might expect. So you pull out the bottom dust filter, like so, goes the full length, that's nice and straightforward. It sort of slots into the feet in a style that we're used to seeing. And then you push two fingers up the front of the case, releasing that bar there. And you may have noticed I fudged that because it's actually slightly fiddly to do. It's much easier to basically lift the case up, put it almost on its back, look at what you're doing and release that trigger, because there are sort of other bits and pieces up there that feel the same as that, but are not. With the front panel removed or the front filter removed, you can, if you wish, wash it out, or you can release these little sort of wire tags to actually get the foam out to give it a really good clean, but that basically involves dismantling the front panel. You don't particularly want to have to do that, so that's not ideal. The thing is, you can yank the entire front panel free with the filter attached. The trouble is that the IO panel on the top, the cables are all connected, which means the front panel remains tethered. And I'm not a huge fan of that. I much prefer an IO panel that remains fixed to the core chassis while the front panel comes away. This doesn't do that. Anyway, once you get past that point, you'll see that you have in the front a 120 X2 GP12 fan, a 1200 RPM model, obviously Fractal Design own, and you've got the same at the back. So two 120mm fans come with the case. There's plenty of space to add in liquid cooling. In this instance, in sort of a homage to the Meshify name, I've gone for an air-cooled system, which is quite rare for me actually. So I've gone for a Ryzen 7 1700X processor on this Micro ATX Asus motherboard, and that has a Noctua AM4 cooler on it. It's actually a very old U12 cooler I happen to have on the shelf, and I've got an adapter kit to mount it on this system. Which just goes to show Noctuas don't really die, they just get recycled. So what we have in the end is, once you strip out the front panel and you get inside the thing, it's a black Define basically. It's just called Meshify, which is absolutely fine by me, because if you buy a Define with the intention of never using those Moduvent panels and you're not really fussed about noise deadening material, it's the same case. Then it's down to the aesthetics of the front panel, and some people like the Define. I personally like the Define. I think it looks very sleek. But if you want total airflow, well, that will do nicely. So hurrah. So they've repurposed the Define as Meshify. I'm absolutely fine with that. The all black aesthetic, that's okay. The two drive caddies beige around this side here, we're used to that. That's good. There's nothing particularly to dislike. it's not the most exciting case. That is an absolute fact. One slight gripe I do have is this, which is that the proper Define is £97 in the UK at the moment. This is the cheaper version, the Meshify, because it doesn't have a couple of bits, no noise deadening material, no mod event panels on the top. But the thing is, it's only £90 in the sense of it's almost the same price, £90, £97, whatever. And I really cannot get excited about the £7 saving because it's a drop in the ocean. So the fact you get black fans, you get black PCI Express brackets, you get black hard drive trays, you get blacker glass, those are all things you need to focus on. The £7 price difference is frankly irrelevant. Go for the blackness rather than the Define look, and you'll be happy. If you think you're buying a cheaper Define by buying the Meshify, I think you're basically taking the wrong approach. Overall, the Meshify is absolutely fine, but then the Define is tried and true. We like the Define a great deal at Kit Guru. Fractal has won awards with the thing, let's face it. So that's all good. The fact that you've got plenty of options for installing liquid cooling, so you've got the 240 radiator in the top, you can go up to 360 down the front if you remove that panel there, which involves pulling off the front to get a couple of screws and a couple more screws, and the panel comes out, and that means you lose the drive cable. We've been there before with that, I've shown you this. So if you want to put loads of liquid cooling in, no problem at all. It means you're using an SSD on its own pretty much, but that's okay. So if you want to gut the storage and stick cooling in the front and the top, you can do all that. I don't personally think that really fits in with the idea of the Meshify kind of look. That's my feeling, I could be wrong. To me, it seems like this is intended to be a straightforward, simple case. Air cooling, bop wop, job done, happy. The snag there is that it's slightly too expensive for that, because this is a really simple build. It goes very nicely. The cabling is neat and tidy and all the rest of it. I just don't think it should cost £90. Now, I know the UK currency at the moment is completely sunk, but even if we make allowances for that, it still seems too expensive. So that there is that gripe. Other than that, happy. Result works well, cooling good, looks nice, yeah, happy. But then the Define's always been a winner, so why wouldn't the Meshify be? If you like this video, thumbs up. If you don't, thumbs down. If you want more from Kit Guru, do click to subscribe. I'm your rewarder for Kit Guru. This is the Fractal Design Meshify C with tempered glass.